Good afternoon all. Rukmin Gangadeen, blessed afternoon to you. Nicola McNichols, my friend, good afternoon. Carol Myers, hi Carol. Neil Francois, good afternoon to you guys and the other 23, 24 persons on. I'm just jumping on for a short time. So touch on just a quick couple issues because I'm in between engagements today. So I completed my third engagement for the day, and I have three more, but I just have like an hour in between the next one till the next one. So yeah, so this morning we had the Bird Fest, which is part of the Arima Borough Corporation. Well, the Arima Borough Corporation is having their Borough Month, and they have an entire list of events for the month of August. And this morning they had the Bird Fest at the Velodrome. So I attended that. Then we was followed by the Malabar South Emancipation Procession, Malabar South Community Council Emancipation Procession. And then we had fashion show, talent show coming up shortly. And then two other events. My last event is at 6:30. So just jumping on quickly. We have here J Dimples, Diane Charles, hi Diane. Alison Rogers, Val Bowen, hi Val. Anon. Thank you so much, Carol. I had to walk in the hot sun today. Lord, that sun different outside there, boy. Woo! Sarah Richards, The Upper House of Praise, Ali Lewis. What is that? Isiruam, I think. Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you so much, Nicola. Jerome, Marshall, Dean Rodney, Yvette Philip. Right, so let me just touch quickly on a couple of things that happened last week. As you see in, well, never a dull moment in sweet TNT. And so, of course, our beloved Prime Minister continues her race beating rants. Let me get this here. Yeah. Continues her race beating rants, unfortunately, for the benefit of her supporters who seem to be lapping it up. So we had this incident a couple of days ago where, out of the blue, we heard the government come up with this 30 police posts that are supposed to assist with the crime fight. So they're just going to be putting these random posts, police posts, mobile posts all over the country. And I guess it is supposed to replace the state of emergency, which is due to come to an end on September 17th. And as I said before, the only option the government has to extend that state of emergency would be to seek a 6-month extension, which requires the support of the opposition and which they will not get. So it's dead in the water, so that's not an option for them. The last time we were at this juncture, which would have been back in January, they came with Zoso. Zoso failed. We got a 1-month reprieve from SOE, and then they come and drop another one on us at the beginning of March, which we are still in. So these 30 mobile police posts, I don't know what they expect to achieve, but let me not criticize it because the first thing they already saying that the PNM are against it, and we are supporting the criminals, and it's because we think that this will help with the crime situation, and so we are not supporting. First of all, just like the rest of Trinidad and Tobago, the first we ever heard about these 30 mobile police units was the same time you all heard about it. And we asked the question, where the money coming from for this? Because no mention was made of this in the budget last year in October. No mention was made of this and no allocation was made for this in the mid-year review a couple of months ago. So that when I hear the Minister of Homeland Security, Roger Alexander, saying that this has been in the works for the past 13 months, I am confused. 13 months? So why 13 months? I don't understand. Why didn't you all implement this back in January when state of emergency came to an end? When Zoso failed? Why didn't you do it in February? In March? And if it is going to be so successful and it's going to see a reduction in crime, why 13 months? Point us to where in the budget, whether it be the budget of October or the media review, that you all came and put that as a line item and said this is how much money it is going to cost, and this is the allocation. Is it directly under the Ministry of Homeland Security? Does it fall under the TTPS? We confused because Commissioner Guevara is defending it as if he was a part of it for the full 13 months. Don't mind, he has not been there for 13 months, but okay, or thereabouts. So we confused. We asking what was the procurement process for this? These mobile posts, who are the vendors for that? What is the cost of each of these units? Well, the minister can't tell us. He said that all of that information will be provided in a subsequent. I have no idea what subsequent means, but that's a new word. Okay, so maybe they might make a submission to Webster or one of these Collins or one of these dictionaries to add the word subsequent. We will get that information in a subsequent reporting. So, but ABEX, we mustn't ask questions about these things, right? So the government could come at anything out of the blue that was not approved by Parliament, and we're just supposed to support it blindly. Let me just tell the supporters of the UNC, we have no issue with anything that the government does to fight crime. Okay? The fact of the matter is that when the PNM was in office and they sought to treat with the issue of crime, and they brought several pieces of legislation to treat with the issue of crime, the UNC refused to support it, most of the times claiming that the legislation will be used to go after UNC politicians, UNC supporters, UNC financiers, and you fully done supporters of the UNC cult, you all applauded that and supported it. So when you come now with your hypocrisy that you're so concerned about crime and anything, and you're supporting anything that the government brings, where were you all? Where were you all when the UNC was voting abstain and voting no for several critical pieces of legislation to fight crime between 2015 and 2025? Where were you all? When Rudal Munila stood up in the parliament and said that he cannot give his support to the anti-gang legislation because when he looks at the number of arrests, the number of persons who have been arrested under that same piece of legislation before, they couldn't support its extension. Because why? The number of arrests read like binary code, 1001100, and he find, well, the police not using the legislation. They're not arresting enough people under this legislation, so it don't make sense to keep it. So we're not supporting. Where were you hypocrites? The Administration of Justice Bill, the Bail Amendment Bill, the same civil asset forfeiture bill that they want to use now to come after Balize House, when they refuse to support it. Where were you hypocrites? To call them out on that. FATCA, where were you hypocrites? Nowhere, right? Because you all didn't want to support any legislation, just like the leadership of your party, you didn't want to support anything that would give the PNM the upper hand or the ability to be able to effectively treat with the crime issue, because you figured that would have enabled them to stay in office and deprive you all the opportunity to get back into office. So when I hear UNC supporters talking about under the PNM 624 murders and 600 and how much murders, and you all were so concerned at the PNM, you all are hypocrites. I don't want to hear all that. I really don't want to hear from you all because you all didn't care about the murder statistics. And in fact, every murder that was recorded, you all were happy. When the murder rate reached 600, you all weren't upset. You weren't concerned. You were happy because you say, right, yeah, that is going to lead to the downfall and the undoing of the PNM. So don't come now and pretend that you all were so concerned about the high murder rate under the PNM. You were not. And we see right through it. So they come with this 30 mobile police units, okay? So I guess when these mobile units are erected and the state of emergency comes to an end, and all of the usual suspects who have been detained for the past how many months and were not able to engage in criminal activity, that when September 17 comes and the state of emergency comes to an end and these persons are not charged because the government has no evidence or anything to charge them and they have no choice but to release them, right? And if there's an uptick in criminal activity, don't call your local police station, call the police post. Call the police post, and they will come and help you. What is the big difference between these police posts and the police cars that you see parked up on the highway in various different spots? Just park up there. Windows up, police officers just chilling, people zooming past at 110, 120 kilometers per hour. Sometimes they might even rock the police car. Police couldn't care about it. And you just see them there, back up on the side. So it will be interesting to see exactly what impact, if any, these police units have on the crime situation. But I am not criticizing it. All right. If the government says that they did the studies and it's going to work, well, all power to you. But we saw what took place in Etihad grounds, where the government just came and just decided, okay, we're going to put one of those units there. No consultation with the borough, with the regional corporation, as the law requires. Right? That's the law. Notwithstanding the fact that, okay, the government has overarching responsibility, but there are certain responsibilities that are vested in the regional corporations. Etihad Grounds is vested with the regional corporation. So it stands to reason, if you're going to put a mobile police unit there, that you should at least consult with the regional corporation so that they will be aware, because they don't know, they just see something building, some sort of construction taking place in Etihad Ground. We have no record, we have no application or anything. So they don't know it's government. They don't know who it is. If it's just somebody who decide, okay, they're going to put up a shop or a shed or another food court or something there. So they just support the pass and say, okay, well, whoever is whoever. So they inquired, all right, found out what it was, and they said, well, listen, we can't take you at your word. You know, you could say you come to bill, but we know nothing about this. And we think that if in fact this is really a government thing, they would have told us something, right? Just basic protocol. They didn't do that. So the chairman did what he was supposed to do. No, just like when Inshan Ishmael wanted to put up the barrier in Bamboo number 2, and the same Tunapuna Piako Regional Corporation had to stop him because they did not seek approval. The hypocritical prime minister, who now wants to accuse the PNM of trying to stall progress or stand in the way of progress and dealing with the crime fighting situation. She was among the loudest voices who said, we are not the Wild Wild West. You can't just go and build things just without approvals. She said that they should have sought approvals from the relevant bodies, in this case, the same Tunapuna Piako Regional Corporation. But apparently, as Alexander said, yesterday was yesterday and today is today, and what happened yesterday can't happen today. So it's okay to bypass the corporation and just come and do whatever it is that you want to do because you are the big bad government. Why you didn't go and do that in some field, in some recreation ground in Felicity or somewhere in Shogunas? You know, the PNM was in power and had done that and had gone down in Shogunas to do that. Faiq Mohammed would have been all over the place. Mayor Faiq Mohammed. And he would have had the support of whoever was the MP for Shogunas West. All of them would have come together and you would have heard the leadership of the UNC talking about how the government doesn't respect the rule of law, and the PNM this, and their supporters would have been saying the same thing. That's how the fish was rotten from the head, and that's why the supporters and them that said are criminal, because they from the head. But all their supporters now tripping over themselves to defend this foolishness. We are not against all. We simply said, follow the procedure. At least inform the corporation now. Consult with them now. So now you find yourself in a situation where you put the structure on a gas line. Maybe if you had spoken to the corporation before, they would have told you that, and you could have avoided that embarrassment. Now UDCOT has to come and get involved. But after the fact, let me get this here. After the goodly prime minister decided to once again use her new favorite word. So let me remind what she said. After facing public outrage for blocking the installation of a police post, the PNM true to form regurgitates the them coolie corrupt narrative. 2 days ago, I said, sadly, PNM MPs and supporters are so full of hatred and racism, they would prefer their stronghold areas and children's futures continue to be destroyed by the local drug mafia than to cooperate with the security services and the coolie prime minister to bring safety. They clearly couldn't wait to prove me right. They would rather leave men, women, and children who use public areas unprotected than allow a mobile police post to be installed That level of hatred is beyond comprehension for seeing persons. Now, after facing public outrage for blocking the installation of the mobile police post at Etihad grounds, the PNM true to form regurgitates the Dem Kuli corrupt narrative. Prepare yourselves for a weekend ahead of Kuli is thief, Kuli is corrupt, the plastering of every derivative of a surname, beginning with Ram all over PNM social media platforms and all versions of PNM Kuli hatred. If the PNM doesn't even care for measures to protect their own supporters, do you think they will care for citizens who do not support them? The law-abiding citizens will remember. We will remember your racism, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, your overt racism, and the support that you're getting from the cult that is the UNC. Because we have read some of the nasty comments under this very same post on her Facebook page. When you post things and if you go on her page and you comment something negative, and it doesn't have to be derogatory, she could they put out a post and you could see something like UNC is a waste of time government or something. So they have the moderators who will delete your comment. But let me just read one of the comments for you under this post. Never back down. One Shastri Bali. Never back down, my fellow coolies. Another one. Where is it? So let me see if I get it here. So where is it? Right. That's not it just now. Let me pull up the post itself and see. Thank God for the Kuli Prime Minister who is working hard to make Trinidad and Tobago great again. And you have other comments like that, right? So now her supporters using the word loosely under her post. Where are the moderators? Who, if you go under that post and say something negative about the UNC, not nasty and divisive like that, they're quick to delete it. But they didn't see it fit to delete those posts. Those comments, it's okay. They don't mind. They like that to support the foolishness of their leader. And then they love to accuse the PNM of blowing the racial dog whistle. Well, I see in today's Guardian, the Mahasabha says, no offense with the use of the word Kuli. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, if that will find favor with the UNC faithful or if it won't. Because if the Mahasabha is saying, well, they take no offense to it. I've already seen on social media some comments from UNC supporters who say, well, the Mahasabha doesn't speak for us. So I guess this version of the Mahasabha doesn't speak for them. But maybe if Sat was still around, you'll recall when Kamala told him some years ago, talk, Sat, talk, you're speaking for us. So I guess under VJ, the Mahasabha no longer speaks for UNC supporters, especially in this instance. Because when Renuka Sagram Singh Suklal, who is a PNM member, former PNM minister, when she was interviewed sometime week before on the same issue, what did she say? She said, well, I am East Indian, I'm a Hindu woman, and I take no offense to it. The UNC faithful went off on her, calling her Miss Sindur and calling her Nimakaram and all of that and all of these things. So I'm waiting to see if they're going to attack Vijay Maharaj and the Mahasabha for saying, well, they see no offense in it. Right? One person, one member of the so-called 1% said it in a private conversation. Well, apparently she speaks for the whole of the 1%, the so-called 1%, the Syrian Lebanese community. And the Prime Minister has taken off on that. So one person, you heard it once in a conversation, a private telephone conversation that was tapped. And oh gosh, the UNC support base beside themselves. She racist, she this and she that. But how many times has this Prime Minister used that same term? Same term. Since then, there are no problem with it. Yeah, Prime Minister. And we endorse that kind of language. But I would remind the fully dunce that in the 10 years Kid Rowley was Prime Minister and in the 15 years that he was leader of the PNM, at no point in time you ever heard him use that word or the other word. That derogatory term that is used to reference his race. Never heard him use that. Difference between the two. and the nastiness that you all continue to endorse and uphold of your leader. And when you can't defend the indefensible, what do? Try to pivot and talk some kind of other rubbish. But we see, and we will remember, right? We will remember total disgrace of a prime minister. But where are the men and women of letters that I always speak about? Where are all the prominent voices who, when the PNM was in power, words couldn't fall quickly enough from Dr. Rowley's lips, and they're ready to write to the newspapers, and they're making themselves available for comment to the media. The media send them a WhatsApp message to ask their opinion on something, and before you even hear ping on their phone, they're responding already, right? It's like they were just waiting with bated breath for that WhatsApp message to come through for their opinion. Where are they today? Martin Daly has gone into retirement. He no longer writes for the newspaper. Where is Hamid Ghani, who is always quick to come and defend the prime minister? Where is he? Vishnu Raghunath, where is the gentleman for what was this group that they formed by? I can't remember, something for ethics and integrity in politics or something like that. Where is he? When they wanted to when they pulled up Dr. Rowley for something he said, can't remember the term he used when he was still prime minister. Where is that gentleman? All of them silent. They have nothing to say. They didn't hear it. They didn't read it. Meanwhile, we would have seen last week where the CSO spoke about some 5,900 jobs were lost in the first quarter of 2026. 5,900. This after the government was boasting and telling us about in the last quarter of 2025, some 8,000 jobs were created. Leroy Baptiste came in the parliament on the 18th of June, right, and made a complete fool of himself. Listen to it.
Because, like Madam Prime Minister, I like stats. I look at the CSO. It's the CSO, The CSO. Not what the UNC say, and surely not what the Minister of Labour said. This is the CSO, the Central Statistical Office. Hear what its data is.
CSO. The amount of times he said that in the few minutes that he spoke on the 18th of June in the lower house where he was a guest. CSO, and playing show and talk at us on the other side. Sounding like he was constipated. Seriously. And like he was in the process of taking an enema. CSO. Where is he today? CSO, the same CSO said 5,900 jobs were lost. First quarter. Where is he? Quiet. You didn't hear that one, Leroy? Didn't hear that one? To come and tell us about CSO. Well, the media was able to catch up with the Minister of Planning, Kennedy Swarat Singh, the former priest. And then what they had to ask him. They asked him about these same first quarter job losses. Here was his response. Planning Minister Dr. Kennedy Swarat Singh says the nearly 6,000 jobs lost during the first 3 months of 2026 should not be viewed in isolation, arguing that decline reflects a recurring post-Christmas employment pattern and does not by itself signal a weakening labor market. Really? It doesn't signal a weakening labor market, but the unemployment rate went up to 5.4. And he is the Minister of Planning. Okay. Also Minister in the Ministry of Finance. Swarat Singh was responding to Guardian Media reporting on the Central Statistical Office's latest labor force survey, which showed that the number of unemployed fell by almost 6,000 between the fourth quarter of 2025 and the first quarter of 2026. While not disputing the CSO figures, Swarat Singh said the more appropriate comparison was between the first quarter of 2025 and the corresponding period in 2026. Swarat Singh said employment actually increased by approximately 5,100 people, moving from 558,900 in the first quarter of 2025 to 564,000 in the first quarter of this year. He cautioned that comparing the final quarter of one year with the opening quarter of the next without accounting for seasonal employment could give an incomplete assessment of the labor market. What utter rubbish. So when a couple months ago, you all were boasting about this 8,000 jobs that the CSO said was created in the last quarter of 2025, right? When Mr. Constipation, as I just played just now, came in the parliament and was talking about CSO, and CSO said 8,000 jobs, and this is not me, and it's not the UNC saying this. This is CSO say. Right. Why you didn't get up and say, well, there was 8,000 jobs were actually seasonal jobs, short-term employment, Kobo Sweat, people who were just hired for Christmas into the carnival season. Why didn't you come and tell the population it had nothing to do with anything that the government did? That wasn't state employment, because 5,900, and then we could probably add the difference with the people that were hired for NPOPs, who were hired in October of 20, it was October, was it December? December of 2025, and the program came to an end, the pilot program came to an end in February of 2026. Why you didn't get up and talk about our CSO say 8,000 and 8,000 and giving the impression as if economy booming and things good? And the majority of those 8,000 jobs that you all were patting yourselves on the shoulder for came to an end in the first quarter. And all you're quiet. You didn't know then that that is what created the jobs. But all of a sudden now, yeah, well, it's just the seasonal, so it doesn't reflect on the actual labor statistics. You know. Where is Professor Hossain? Raja Hossain. Where is he? Economist extraordinaire. Because when that 8,000 figure came out from CSO, he had plenty to say. Mr. Manati and Manakin, where is he? Nothing to say. No media house contact you for comment. No newspaper. Nobody ask you for your opinion on it. Oh, but we were seeing and hearing a lot of him when the 8,000 figure came out. But it seems that the Prime Minister doesn't agree with our Minister of Planning. Because while he tells us that the job losses, the 5,900 job losses, is as a result of seasonal employment having come to an end, his Prime Minister saying, well, no, it's not that, no. It's because the government's fight against the drug cartels and the drug mafia, with the assistance of up north, with all the boats that were being bombed between September last year and whenever the last one was blown up, right? That it has seriously impacted the drug trade. And so all these businesses that were fronts for the drug mafia, now that they can't get drugs to sell, they have to close up shop. And as a result of that, all these job losses that you're seeing, these are people who are working for all these drug fronts, and the businesses closing up shop now, and that is why you're seeing these job losses. So all these people, all these companies that shutting down, they're closing their doors because they can't get Forex. We were told in May last year, soon as Mrs. Prasad Bisasa became Prime Minister, we're going to deal with the Forex cartel. That is the problem. That's why I can't get 200 US in the bank, because of the Forex cartel. But we're going to break the back of the Forex cartel 15 months later. Whereas when the PNM left office, you could get 200 in cash. Now you're lucky if you could get one. So businesses that closing down or downsizing because they can't get Forex to bring in their goods. Businesses that were impacted because of Tanku's foolish economic policies. Businesses that are struggling because of the downturn in the economy with the firing of CPF workers, URP workers, forestry workers, public servants whose contracts are not being renewed, public servants who just get a little short-term employment and therefore they're afraid to spend their money. So whatever little kakada they get, they're trying to save. So if today or tomorrow they hear, well, hey, no work for you. That's the day your contract ends. They have a little something to tide them over until, just for the basic necessities, until they can find something else. So the decline in aggregate demand across the economy, the decline in spending that is affecting businesses, all of that not contributing. That not contributing to these job losses. No, according to the Prime Minister, it's because all these businesses were just fronts for the drug mafia. Because Trinidad and Tobago was just the biggest drug block in the whole of the Caribbean. Meanwhile, in other countries, other Caribbean territories, where I imagine, based on what the Prime Minister said, where these boats might have had an impact, the blowing up of these boats, we're not seeing a commensurate amount of job losses. But they will never accept and admit that it's because of their dotish policies. When you listen to this government, you expect Trinidad and Tobago is just one big prison now. It was just criminality all over the place. We shut down CPF and URP because of fraud and corruption, and everything is corruption and corruption. If it's not corruption, it's drugs, drug mafia. It's everything is cartel and mafia with this government. The PNM, the PNM do this and the PNM do that and the PNM. If the PNM had $1 for every time a member of the government or their support base blame us for something in the last 50 months, well, I tell you, we could have built about 10 Balize house with our money. About 10 or more. But you get a government that you not deserve, but that you voted for. All right, let's see what's the time there. Right. So I could only touch briefly on some of these things. But just to remind, let me see what let me just get this here. Right?
About overall employment. The UNC in 2010 to 2015, employment increased from 582,100 to 623,300, a net increase of 41,200 jobs under the PNM. The PNM from 2015 to 2025, the first quarter, this is CSO people. Employment declined from 623,300, which they got from us, to 558,900, a drop of 64,400 jobs.
You see, when you're a dirty liar, you go on first quarter, so 64,000 people lost their job in the first quarter, right? And you're fully dunce. But anyway, I played that because this is the second time we've heard from a minister of government about the 64,200 persons who lost jobs under the PNM. We first heard it from the Minister of Public Utilities, the Member of Parliament for Couva South, Barry Padarath, in speaking in the private motion that Kareem brought some months ago, back in January, I think it was, where he too said that under the PNM for the period 2015 to 2025, 64,200 jobs were lost in total. Now, if we just take again this first quarter of this year, so that means over 10 years, 6,420 jobs were lost per year. They accomplished that in a quarter. Every time we speak, and it is not lost on us, every time a member of the PNM speaks, and we quote a figure in terms of the number of persons who have lost jobs in the last 15 months, and if we say 40,000 or 50,000 or whatever it is, and the government look up and say, oh, they lie, they're exaggerating it. Take note, no member of the government has ever come and said this is the figure. They have never come and stated or quoted an exact figure to say, well, no, it's not 40,000, it's 26 or it's 18. They will never quote figures. You know why? Because they know the truth. And even if our figures are an exaggeration, which I don't believe it is, whatever figure they have, I am certain is very close to or probably exceeds what we quote. So that is why you will never hear them quote an exact figure. But when you talk about the CSO and the CSO and the CSO say, okay. All right. But the supporters ain't going to talk about that, No, Petrochin, the PNM shut down Petrochin, 10,000 people lost jobs and 100,000 people lost jobs in the fence line communities. And where you all got that from? Your same misleader. And the leadership of your party, every Monday night forum, 100,000, 150,000, 200,000 people lose their jobs. And then they had to come in the parliament in this session to come and tell you it was 64,200 people. And they probably crossed that figure already in 15 months. I don't think in the history of this country, except maybe I was too young then, except maybe 86 to 91. But you would have had a government that after 15 months in office, a population that is so anxious to get rid of them. Not a day goes by that I don't encounter somebody in a car park, in the mall, in the grocery, on the street, somewhere, who recognize me. I would say, Mr. Romain, how long again we had to put up with these people, boy? How soon we could get rid of this government, boy? I can't take no more. How much longer? Every single day. I encountered 2 of them so far for today. How much longer again? What we do to deserve this government? This government is the worst. The worst. Some of the own people saying it. I saw a video with a gentleman saying the same thing. Saying he has to go and put his children in a home because of this UNC government. He can't afford to take care of his children. And he's at his wits end. And the only option he has right now is to take his children and put them in a home. I saw the video where the government seems to be clearing some lands down in South or somewhere there. And the residents within the vicinity are asking what is going to go there. Is it the AI data center? Are they going to build housing? We want to know. Because some persons who would have lost their jobs under CPEP, URP over the last year or so have taken to agriculture, using the land just to plant crops to feed themselves and see if they could sell out 1 or 2 things to be able to eke out a living. And they're seeing lands being cleared and the crops are about to be bulldozed. I'm sure some of you would have seen, because it was an interview that was done with, I think, CNC3 or one of them, where the woman is saying she was working CPEP. At least the money wasn't big, but it could have full a hole. We could have do something. At least we was as small as the money was, it was helping us. For yet another year, many of these parents find themselves in the situation where they don't know where the money coming from to buy books, to buy school supplies. So the same gentleman who's planning to put his children in a home, what do you say? Well, if you keep them, sending them back to school with the same books, same bags, same shoes, same uniform, same everything. So even if they go in a new form or a new standard, you send them back with the same books. Doesn't care that this is, if it's form 2 books, sending them to form 3 or whatever as the case may be. I met a woman this morning when I went to the Malabar South Community Council's emancipation procession. She said she was working as a checker in URP. She said, no, look at me in my age. I can't go and get no work nowhere. I'm trying to see what I could do. She said, I have my 2 grandchildren to see about. Nothing coming in. I have no money. The little money I was getting when I was a checker, I could have do something with it. But now, nothing. And that is the plight of many people across this country. But where the UNC faithful to defend these people? Where are they? Nowhere to be seen. But anytime stupidness crop up, oh yeah, they're right there. HDC asks OPR to review 17.5 million insurance contract renewals. The Office of the Procurement Regulator has been asked to look into possible breaches of procurement requirements with the renewal of insurance contracts by the HDC between 2023 and 2025. In a brief interview with Guardian Media, same one they like to call Sabga Media, that they want nothing to do with. Okay. Current HGC Chairman Feroz Khan confirmed that the state company had sought the OPR's advice on the process that was used by the former board and management to renew its insurance services with Norman Gabriel Limited. What we have done is sought the advice of the OPR to determine whether contracts that were simply extended were valid, whether they were valid or not. Khan noted that the OPR's stance on the issue would be instructive, as numerous other unconnected contracts with other companies were extended in similar manner. So the HDC is asking the OPR to look into insurance contracts that would have been issued by the HDC or would have been engaged by the HDC with Norman Gabriel Services. But meanwhile, Camille Robinson Regis asked a very important question at last week's press conference in relation to some $6+ million in same insurance contracts. So I guess these contracts that they're asking about here would have come to an end. They opted not to extend them and decided to go with a new provider. One Consolidated Insurance Brokers, I believe, is the name of the company. A company in which Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Trade, Member of Parliament for Chaguanas West, Colin Neil Gosain, has significant interest in that company. And I think I heard Camille mention the chairman of I believe, Unicot, I think she mentioned, may have some some interest in that company as well. And so she's asking questions. What was the procurement process used to award the $6 million in contracts for insurance by the HTC to this company in which the member for Shogunas East has significant holdings? So I would think, well, since the HTC, since you all writing to the OPR, forward that one time now. If it's above board and there is no there and there was no wrongdoing or cause for concern, forward it one time so that the OPR could investigate it and then respond to Camille Robinson Regis and tell her, well, everything was above board. But you're not going to do that. No, 3 million of which would have been allocated in the media review. We raised that issue. I think Stuart Young would have raised it during the Standing Finance Committee. But no answers on that. That's okay. All right. The Foley Don's not interested in that either. OPM awaits legal advice from the AG on release of PM's travel records. The Office of the Prime Minister has spent nearly 6 months deciding whether to grant a Freedom of Information request for records showing how many overseas trips the Prime Minister took, who traveled with her, and the cost it had on taxpayers. Last Friday, in response to Guardian Media, the OPM sought a 5th 30-day extension, saying only that the application was currently receiving attention. The latest extension comes after the office said it needed legal advice from the Attorney General because of the high-level nature of meetings attended during these trips. Guardian Media submitted the request on February 9th. The OPM said it received it on February 18th. And as of August 8th, 171 days later, the OPM had neither approved nor refused the request. It had also released none of the records. The request covers official, regional, and international travel undertaken by the Prime Minister from April 28, 2025. It seeks a list of all trips, destinations, dates, purposes, and the names and official titles of everyone who accompanied the Prime Minister. It also asks for an itemized breakdown of airfare, accommodation, per diem or non-accountable allowances, ground transportation, security costs, and any other travel expenses paid from public funds. Since assuming office, the Prime Minister has made at least 5 trips overseas, including to the United Nations General Assembly in New York and the Shield of Americas in Doral, Florida. So they're stalling, they're sticking to provide the information requested. What is there to hide if everything is above board? But here the nonsense that they're citing. Because of the high-level nature of the meetings and attended, and the high-level nature of meetings attended during these trips. Let me remind them again. UNC hypocrisy. Where is it? This one. Let's see if I get this here. The internet is forever. Right. So let me get it here. Right. Okay, let me see if I get this here. So, why am I not seeing this? So you all may recall that, right. Trinidad Guardian dated 17th of April 2024, entitled PM Mom on 10 million travel bill. I will not respond to anything Munilal says. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley says he will not respond to allegations from Dr. Rudal Munilal that he spent $400,000 of taxpayers' money on personal business when he went to collect an honorary doctorate from Howard University last year. The Prime Minister was responding to revelations from Oropos East MP, Dr. Rudal Munilal, that he spent $10.6 million of taxpayers' dollars or monies on international travel over 36 months. When contacted for a response by Guardian Media, Dr. Rowley said, I am not prepared to respond to anything Munilal has to say about taxpayers' money until he complies with the court order and puts in his defense in the EMBD matter, where millions of taxpayers' dollars are yet to be accounted for. But Dr. Rudal Munilal countered in his claim, saying, I am never in contempt of any court proceeding. Right. During the UNC's Monday night forum meeting held at Lengua Tiai Islamia Primary School in Princestown, Dr. Munilal said he filed a written question in Parliament inquiring how many times the Prime Minister traveled overseas between September 20th, 2020 and February 29, 2024. He also asked about the cost of each trip, including hotel accommodation, meals, ground transport for the Prime Minister and his entourage, and other related expenses. The answer was supplied last Friday in Parliament, and Dr. Munilal presented its findings to supporters, saying Dr. Rowley spent a staggering 10.6 million over that 36-month period. So he filed a question in the Parliament, and the Office of the Prime Minister furnished the information about all of Dr. Rowley's travels over 36 months. But here it is, The Guardian is asking for the same information about this Prime Minister, the number of times that she has traveled and expenses related to such travels in the space of 15 months, well, less, because they filed this back in February, so in about a year or so. And 6 months now, or 5 to 6 months now, 6 months, the OPM still is trying to decide whether or not they should provide the information. These hypocrites had no problem asking for information when Dr. Rowley was Prime Minister, and they got it with due dispatch. But no, this is the government that promised transparency. As tax coup to all hands, if there's one thing you said correct, the days of secrets are over. This is the government of transparency and accountability. But 6 months now, we can't provide the information just to tell the country how much money was spent on the Prime Minister's travels, who she went with, and how much was spent. We're not asking for any details on what was said, who she met with, and what was said in those meetings. We just want to know how much was spent, who she went with, which was publicized, because let's say it's this minister, that minister, and whoever else, and how much money was spent on hotel accommodation and meals and per diem, and that's all. So what was the big secret? So this nonsense about because of the high-level nature of the meetings. Nobody asked any information on the meetings. The travel, from the time she walked off of the Sky Bridge and she walked onto the plane, and the time she came off the plane, we don't need to know where she went, what she wore, who she met with. How much did the plane tickets cost? Who went with her? How much did their plane tickets cost? How much money, US dollars, did they get for each day as a per diem for them to spend to buy meals and whatever else? That's all we want to. They had to get legal advice from the Office of the Attorney General. So when they were in opposition, well, yes, the population needed to know. The population needed to know how much money the Prime Minister spent on travels. Now they're in government. Well, the population don't really need to know. There are certain things the population ought not to know. This government of transparency and accountability. That's UNC for you, right? So I said I would just be on here briefly. So those of you who subscribe to my constituency, my MP page, right? MP Malabar Mausika page, what I've seen on Friday, posted up some photographs of some paving work that was done in my constituency, right? Of a street that was paved in the Evergreen Karapo area. But I put up some photos with myself and the councillor for the Karapo district, Mr. Derek Laguerre, as well as, and I think we had some of the residents from the area in the photos as well. And we put up the post because this is one of the many streets, you all would have heard me speak about this street before, that required paving. We wrote to this ministry, that ministry, begging for help and nothing forthcoming. And several residents, persons who live on that street, would have come to me on office day to ask me to intervene and to have their street paved. And I would have told you all that that street is a stone's throw away from where the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government lives. In fact, if she stands on her balcony and she spit, it's likely to land right on the middle of the street. That's to tell you how close she lives. For 15 months, nothing was done. Despite the fact that the residents complaining, they're saying the minister living right there, secondary roads, which that is falls under her ministry, and nothing happening. But the minister, Diane Prado, bringing her home and all that, because remember, she's one of the ministers who claimed to have been threatened, and she requires support. And, well, not support, she requires security. So I spoke with my councillor some time ago, and I said, councillor, you know, so and so. One of a couple of your Burgesses came to me and they mentioned the street, whatever. And he said, MP, I'm working on it. I will put it down as one of my DPs, my developmental projects, and so on. And hopefully we will get the funding for it and we will be able to get it done. I said, great, wonderful. So he was able to get it done, right? And we decided, okay, take some photos. He called me, say, MP, we get through the road paving today. They're doing the preparatory work, and then tomorrow they'll come back and pave and whatnot. So when the work is finished, I would like you to come and we will go down there and we will take some photos. We'll talk to some of the residents and hear how they feel about the project. I said, great. And I went. We took our photos and we posted them. This shameless Khadija Amin had the audacity, the temerity, and the unmitigated gall to go after. We left. And well, later on in the afternoon, because during the course of the day, she and Xander were making control down on Eddie Hart grounds with the police post. Right? Went and round up some children in the area to go and take some photos of the street and take credit for something she had nothing to do with. Because when I spoke in the parliament back in June, and I raised the issue about several roads in my constituency where she lives that needed repair, patching, whether it's patching or paving or whatever it is, and all of that. And I called out, I said, but the minister knows the water situation, she knows because she lives in the constituency. So that when I say the challenges we're having for water now is unprecedented, she could attest to that because she knows, she lives there. You know, she mumbled a little thing under her breath and so on. And then afterwards, when we went to the members' lounge, we had a brief discussion and she was telling me about her father dig trench and all that to run a pipeline. All those, okay. And said to me, well, you know, she doesn't like to encroach on other people's territory and so on. I said, Khadija, you have my permission to encroach on my territory. Pave the road. If you want to do it, go right ahead and do it. You have my full support. Because if I write into the ministry and I'm not getting through and I could talk directly to you and it impacts you using the road every day, pave it. You don't need to call me. You could take all the credit for it. Just pave the road and bring the people some level of relief. Listen to what she had to say. Home is home. I don't often share on my own village. I live in a community where it seems that the only time roads are paved is under a UNC government, even though it falls under PNM MP and a PNM local government rep. As a child, I remember my father digging trench with the neighbors to bring a water main. I remember going out the road for ice and making juice for my brother and his friends to dig a drain around the savannah to stop it from being waterlogged. I remember dirt roads with grass in the middle and borrowing an extension from a neighbor because we didn't have electricity to have meetings when I first ran for election. I remember the bad name we had at one time because of violence and murders. And still, I made a conscious decision to continue to live in my village. Because I saw those grass roads get paved for the first time under UNC government, I saw a recreation ground get concrete drain, proper fill and lights under UNC government. And after years of being in opposition, I know everything can't be done overnight, but little by little, God is love. See that? Shameless. Put up those photos. There she is. Right? So there she is, the lady pretending that she's meeting with resident, but the lady in the yellow jersey is her mother. Right? Again, yeah, just showing all here. Shameless. So she took the opportunity then to go on and then, as I said, round up some children from the area to come on and pretend to take credit for things that she didn't do. And that's UNC deception for you. When on Racecourse Road, which is the main road leading to Evergreen, big potholes in the road, right? Since before I was elected, people were saying to me when I was campaigning, if you win, we would like you to pave whatever. One of the first things I did when I became MP was to write to Jermaine John, asking her to come on and do a tour of my constituency so I could show her that road. Other roads in the area, right? Like Jokan Trace and La Compensation and all these roads that in a mess. In UNC areas. We're complaining about PNM neglect Karapo won. 15 months she's been the minister. She has the responsibility for minor roads. Ain't paved none. But coming now to take credit for things that you didn't do, shamelessly. And then has the audacity to talk about, I remember the bad name we had at one time because of violence and murders. The only time Karapo and her village had a bad name for violence and murders was between 2010 to 2015 when Anil Roberts was the MP for the area. Well, MP between 2010 and 14, but it continued into the 1 year where they had the caretaker in the person of Patricia Mejias Sedeno, or whatever her name was. Record number of murders. It's practically every week. Murders used to be taking place in Karapo. Why? Because they're given box train contracts to this one and that one. And when one group get box train contracts for 250,000 and another one get a box train contract for 500,000, the group that get the one for 250 decide they want a piece of the 500,000. And then you hear gunshots and 2-3 people killed. 76 murders. 76 murders in the constituency of Malabar Mausikau, then W. Mirror, while Anil Roberts was the MP for the area. That's where we first heard the name Rajai Ali, who has now been incarcerated for a number of years, linked supposedly, whose name get called up in live sport and whose name was mentioned, and I think, well, in connection with the Dina Sitahal assassination. Yeah, he used to live down in the back there too. Where she living? Stone throw away from where she lives. So to hear her come with this nonsense now about she remembered, yeah, it's under your government. The government of which you were a part. Well, you weren't a part of that government, but indirectly, because she was chairman of the Tunapuna Piako Regional Corporation between 2010 to 2015. And so shameless to hear her now come and chastise TPRC for putting a stop, a temporary stop, to the construction of the base for the so-called mobile unit. Right? And the PNM want to obstruct. She was a chairman of that corporation, so she understands the procedures, intimately familiar with it. That is why she's Minister of Local Government, because of the stint that she served as a councillor and as chairman of TPRC. The very same corporation. So to hear her now come and chastise Josiah Austin and the corporation, accusing them of trying to stand in the way of progress, she should be ashamed of herself. Ashamed. But the UNC has no shame. You can't even say doggy their shame. All the dogs in the UNC party suffering from malnutrition. No shame to eat, all gone. And what is also noteworthy is the fact that the TPRC is not all PNM. You have about 4 or 5 councillors in TPRC who are UNC councillors. And I didn't hear a single one of them come out and say that they're not in support of the position taken by Chairman Austin. Not one of them came out and say, well, they're supporting the position of Alexander or they're supporting the position of the Prime Minister. So when they want to come and make it seem like it's a PNM thing and PNM thing, it's a PNM UNC corporation. And unless and until we see something signed by the councillors, the UNC councillors saying they distance themselves from the position taken by Chairman Austin and the PNM councillors, all on stupidness and foolishness. But anyway, as Alexander said, yesterday was yesterday and today is today. Plenty more roads to pave in Karapo. And you see, they expect me to abandon Karapo because that's where they get the most of their votes. And they figure that I will say, well, all right, Karapo is UNC. And I didn't get much votes there, so I will abandon. Absolutely not. I intend to do quite a bit of work down on that side. But going forward, I will make sure we keep receipts. So when the goodly minister decides that she wants to come and take credit for things she had absolutely nothing to do with, don't worry, we will present our receipts. So damn dishonest. You all have all the resources and refuse to do the work. How many roads have they paved in the last 15 months? But for 10 years, the supporters were complaining, oh, the roads so bad. The roads this, the roads that. They want your car must be roadworthy, but the road's not car worthy. And look at the state of the roads, another PNM and the PNM. Have the roads improved? No, they haven't. You see the supporters complaining? They're burning tires? No, they have patience like Job. So if it takes 5 years for the roads to pave, they have no problem with that. They have no problem every Monday morning having to spend money on the suspension and change axles and whatever else they had to change. Right? No, they have no problem with that. But under the PNM, no. The worst, Joe can trace. Again, down in Karapo, the situation has gotten so bad. Again, I have written to both ministries because one side tell them, no, that is not under the Ministry of Works, that's under local government. And local government say, no, it's not under us, it's under the Ministry of Agriculture. And it's only a fed up. The residents have now taken to picking up donations, right? They walk around the neighborhood and asking anybody, yeah, $5, $10, whatever you could put. Cars that using the road, they will stop by the donation sheet, ask the people they can make a donation, and they were able to purchase some material, and now they're filling in the potholes and so on to make the road a little bit passable. But in the end, it's set a whole noise. Interestingly, that after Khadija talked this set of rubbish, no, before that, when I went to the consulate to take some photos, there was a young lady who's been living in the back there since almost its inception, and she was telling me, she said she's part of an organization. This is the woman I told you all about, who runs the organization for women, who was telling me that she has a lot of women who have come to her, who are former CPEP workers, who have indicated to her that having lost their CPEP jobs and not being able to find gainful employment since then, some of them have now turned to prostitution to feed their children. And she was telling me, she said, when we came in the back here, was only bush and mud. Hardly anybody wanted to come down in the back here to live. But it's when Karen Nunes Teixeira, PNM, came in, that she paved a whole set of roads in the back there, and all of a sudden, Evergreen became popular, and everybody started to come down there. She said, no, you can't get a piece of land to squat on. And when you go down in the back there, notwithstanding the fact that it is a low-income neighborhood, when you see some of the homes, those in the vicinity of the minister, homes that you're likely to see in middle-class neighborhoods. So not because the people struggling necessarily means that they have to live like that. So it's people, different economic backgrounds, have chosen to go down there and squat. Right? They're having issues with water. As we raise the issue of water, I hope those of you who don't have water tanks, that you run to the nearest hardware and buy probably one or two 1,000-gallon tanks, because you heard last week the Minister of Public Utilities say that all of the reservoirs are currently below 50%, and they don't expect any significant rainfall in the near future. Yes, we will get some rain probably October, late September, early October thereabouts, but they don't expect anything significant to allow the reservoirs to recover to the long-term average. So if you know you're catching your tail now and your schedule is off, and you normally get water 3 days a week, and now you're getting it whenever, it is going to get worse. Don't depend on this incompetent government to help you. And if you feel you could call WASA and get a truck-borne supply, forget about that. I have been battling with that as well. So, problems. So, go and get yourself an extra tank. Even if you have in your yard, get an extra one and stock up. Because it's going to be a long, hot summer under this government. Totally incompetent. I remember when the PNM was in power and rain falling, and WASA telling you, the reservoir is low. The supporters used to be saying, rain falling, but like the only place it didn't fall in is by the reservoir. But we got some rains recently, but it seemed like it didn't fall, it didn't get the memo it was supposed to go by the reservoir. You hear the supporters making any complaints about that? They making any memes about that? No. They're under say. Only under the PNM nothing does happen. So brace yourself for water woes. You know, thank God these people weren't in government when we had COVID, no? Because the amount of people would have died. The amount of persons that would have passed away. Hypocrites. Let's see this thing here. Where is it? There was one more thing I wanted to touch on quickly. Where is it? I cannot see it. Save and accept it to just touch quickly on the Prime Minister is supposed to make some major announcement, I think, in the coming days. It may be on Tuesday. She might make an appearance. They might finally decide to have a post-cabinet press briefing after almost 2 months or more of no cabinet press briefings. So she may put in an appearance there, and she's supposed to make some major announcement with respect to the gas sector. So we wait to see. You know, they come and they drop a hint and then they leave you in suspense. And so for 4 or 5 days, the fully done's coming to talk about, well, PNM people ain't gonna be happy and thing and yes, and all kind of speculation. Speaking of speculation, well, it seems the speculation is no longer speculation, but confirmation, because I saw my colleague Stuart Young put out a post just now asking the Prime Minister for answers with respect to some work that he's seeing taking place opposite President's house, seeming confirmation that the route for the or the location of the parade, the Independence Day parade, has changed, and it will not take place in the usual venue of in front of the grandstand, but instead to the north side of the Queen's Park Savannah, directly opposite President's house. So as we've seen reported, the president is supposed to come out, drive across the road, inspect the parade, and then probably head to Napa, and the parade will then proceed to go around the Savannah and so on. Right? So it is a convenient way for the Prime Minister not to attend. But we will see, because she did say she will provide you all with another opportunity to curse her and hurl abuses at her. So whether it would be the 31st of August, we will see, or if based on this new arrangement, well, there is no, unless they plan to put up tent and all kind of thing to shelter the dignitaries and all of that, which is going to cost another piece of money unnecessarily. Who's going to get that money? I don't know. But leave it up to this government to find creative ways to be able to benefit from taxpayers' money, or to have their financiers benefit from taxpayers' money. But as the Prime Minister say, brace yourself for a weekend of them coolie corrupt and them coolie there's thief and all kind of nonsense like that. She said that. I haven't heard anybody saying that. So perhaps she will be disappointed. But they continue with their racist rhetoric. But we will not. We remember. And I hope you, the citizens, remember as well. All right? Because make no mistake about it, you know. The plan is they know the psyche of citizens. They will suffer you all for 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years, and then they're going to come when money starts to run and offer you all kind of things. All of a sudden, they will pave a road. But just remember, UNC fully dance. You always say, that's old time politics. The PNM feel like a come and pave road and fool me to get vote. Yeah, but the UNC could do that. The PNM can't do that, but the UNC could do all that. Right? So, all the things that they have planned to come with and try and mama guy. Imagine the Prime Minister come and say, the government is not going to support people who are irresponsible. Right? You're on your own. Meaning that if it is you decide to go and get knocked up and have children that you can't mind, don't look to the government to give you financial support for that. Who send you? If you know you don't have money to mind child, don't make. That is a far cry from 2010 to 2015 when the policy was baby grant. Be irresponsible. Make child you can't mind, and the government set aside $120 million to give you $500 a month to buy milk and Pampers for the baby that was made out of irresponsibility. Now she's saying, we know of the government. No more of that. But when Keith Rowley said we know of the government, and he said it not to the wider citizenry, but he was speaking specifically to the business community, and he made mention of the fact that he was referencing comments that were made by a business owner in response to the budget of that year, where the business owner made the claim or said that the government did not provide a stimulus package for the business community to stimulate economic activity in the country. And the Prime Minister said, so they sitting, this individual and perhaps his cohort sitting back waiting to see what the government offering are going to put out there for the business community, for them to do what they need to do, right? And he said every school that have to build, every road have to pave, every hospital, everything is the government, is the government, is the government. Private sector wouldn't come forward and say, well, you know, we're getting all these contracts, hundreds of millions and billions of dollars in contracts to pave roads. And most of the times it's our big trucks and equipment that mashing up the road. When our trucks are overloaded, beyond the weight capacity and sinking the road, we wouldn't say, Well, let's give back to the country. Let us offer to pave the road for free, and the state will pay for the material. We will provide the labor and the equipment, or the other, whichever way you want to do it. They wouldn't say that. So the road bad, they have the equipment, they have the material, they have the labor, but they sit down waiting for contract. I wouldn't say over all these years we benefited so much from the state. Let me get back a little something now. Let's contribute to fixing the roads that we contributed to mashing up. No, they wouldn't say that at all. So Dr. Rowley said, well, we know the government. If as the business communities, everything is the government, come on. The government's responsibility is to provide for the average citizen. UNC took him to task for that. Rowley said, we know the government. But them latch on to the government thoughts. They get a self 47% increase and how much and all of that. But anti-cams, everything is anti-cams. Well, now anti-cams tell all you we know of the government. Right? You want to be irresponsible? You want to go and knock up people, girl child? But make sure you have the money to mind the child. Or if you don't have the money, well, you know what the alternatives are. You think a supporters calling out? No. Yes, tell them they're too irresponsible and it's PNM supporters and making us at children and they can't mind the children. UNC supporters, they don't do that. No, because you know why? They have business. They have money and they could take care and they don't make as many children as the irresponsible PNM supporters. But if Rowley had said that, watch him. It's not his money, it's taxpayers' money, but he wants to come and tell people and whoever. Yeah. Yesterday was yesterday, and I continue to say UNC supporters are some of the most dangerous people in this country. Most dangerous. Things that they will support and defend under this government, PNM could never get away with. When Dr. Rowley said to women in general, you need to be a little more careful with the men that you choose. Choose your men wisely. All the men and women have letters come and say, oh, he's too disrespectful and how he could say things like that. But now Prasad Bisasa basically telling you the same thing. Don't go and put yourself in no broke man. Yes, sage advice. Yes, Prime Minister, tell them. No more baby grant for there. So all of you all who looking for handouts and expecting handouts and feel this government care about you all, they don't. To the CPEP workers who decided Stuart Chung was fear-mongering when he told you all they were going to shut down the program and you still went and gave them your vote. And you're still hoping by some measure that they're going to come with some program to replace CPEP and pay you the same salaries that they pay in the NPOPs workers who work in 3 and 5 fortnights and can't get paid. And only excuses from the minister. Now they outsource. She told us, listen to them. She came to the parliament and told us the problem was the ministry, accounts department and payroll department was handling the salaries for NPOPs before. And that proved to be a nightmare, because of the challenges and the issues and so on. Then she went on to say, in the parliament, they created a specialist unit, a separate unit in the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government to deal with salaries for NPOPs. Minister told us that just recently, a couple days ago, come now to tell us they outsource and hire some company, some external company to do that. So what happened to the specialist unit, the dedicated unit that you claimed you created in your ministry for that purpose? What happened to it? Did it ever exist, or were you just giving us a 6 for 9? Who is this company that you outsource to? What they charging? How much they charging to do this? How much? We're just asking the question. And what is the future of the NPOPs, which is supposed to come to an end in about a month's time, sometime around the 13th of September? So this 6-month cycle will end, and all 1,600 persons who, well, I can't even say gainfully employed, who employed for the last 5 months or so, will once again be back on the breadline, waiting to see if there will be a third cycle and if the names will be in that cycle. Meanwhile, if they come with the next cycle, as is the norm, they will give each PNM MP 2 names. And you know what they're doing? I was told that while they give each PNM MP 2 names, and we're supposed to be eternally grateful for that, and we are, not eternally, But we're grateful nonetheless because there are lots of people in our constituencies who are without work and who come to us all the time looking for work. So if we get 2 names, it could still fill a hole and feed our family for 6 months or 3 months or whatever it is. But if it's two names per PNM MP, that means out of the 1,600 persons that were hired, only 26 came from PNM MPs. Where the rest came from? And I'm being told they have, what are the things they're doing? Is giving shadow MPs who pretending to be MPs, right? Giving them resources to do work and starving us, the PNM MPs, of resources. So I am told that the man who they have serving as the shadow MP for Arima, that he was given a number of names. Well, he was given the opportunity to submit several names, and he would have gone in certain pockets in Arima and giving work, taking names of several people, known UNC activists and so on, to give them work. So while we, the elected MPs, only getting 2, he getting 40 and 50 names to go. And then speaking at functions taking place throughout the constituency as if he is the MP. Right? He's being introduced as the shadow MP. And in some cases, the bona fide MP is not being invited. They can't come in my constituency with that nonsense. For one, I'm not tolerating it. And 2, Mr. Smith, who is supposed to be my shadow, it seems he's no longer interested in Malabar Mausika because he got what he wanted, which was to become a minister of government. Right? And since he does not have the responsibility of representative office on his shoulder, he only shows up once in a while if some NGO or some other group in the constituency having something in Karapo, which is where Khadija lives. They have something there, and they invite her, and she will invite him to tag along. But other parts of the constituency, you don't see that. Only when things taking place in Karapo, which is where they would have gotten a significant amount of votes, the 2 of them will show up there. But Malabar, they don't go there. Dabadi, they don't go there. Samaru Village, these places, all of which is part of Malabar Mausika, they're not interested in going these places. So I don't know what kind of shadow, what kind of, bogus shadow MP he is. But that's what they're doing. These are the people who complain for 10 years about geographic discrimination. Or the PNM only doing things in PNM areas and nothing for UNC areas. You see them doing anything in PNM areas? You see Madam walk fast. Madam call the videographer at 4 o'clock in the morning to say, around the corner, come down in the basement. Right? So you could record me driving in, blasting out my music. And you could record me come out the car and dancing, and shaking my waist and so on. So you could post up a video. Yes. That lady. You see her in all the UNC constituencies, but apparently she didn't realize that Trinidad and Tobago has 41 constituencies and not 28. But if you look at the antics of this government, you would swear it's only 28 constituencies there. Or not even 28, because they couldn't care less about Tobago. Right? So the 26 that they hold in Trinidad get all the attention. But if the PNM had done that, it's a different story. Last, before I go, right? We get this here. So I see the Chief Secretary for the Tobago House of Assembly, Mr. Farley Augustine, is calling on the politicians in Trinidad to tone down the rhetoric, the racist rhetoric, and let me get this here. That's not. Don't know how many of you would have seen that story, but I thought it noteworthy. Hypocrisy. So give me 1 second to find it. Right. Yes. Farley urges TNT leaders to tone down the racial rhetoric. Okay. Get this here. Why this thing not opening? Right. Chief Secretary Fali Augustine is urging politicians in Trinidad to show greater restraint and maturity amid escalating racial tensions in the country. He made the statement on Wednesday during an urgent meeting of stakeholders at the masjid in Lowlands. The meeting was organized by Tobago Muslim community leader Camille Ali, who expressed grave concern over the current climate as he urged leaders to tone down the racial rhetoric. Stop urging leaders, specify and say Kamla Prasad Bisesa, specify and say the UNC, because it is not lost on the fact that when last week all of them got have gotten the memo from Pararat that they needed to put out a statement, everybody put out a statement to support the Prime Minister in her condemnation of the PNM for what happened at the Emancipation Day procession, where the woman, I think her name is Olobasi, told Michelle Benjamin, we will remember that while you offer us food for tomorrow, you starve us today, we will remember. And they turned that into a whole racial thing. Yeah, they attack. Kamla come out and say they attack Michelle Benjamin because she's a strong black woman, a strong African woman, and it's because they see Michelle as being her daughter. What utter rubbish, Prasad Bisesa. Had nothing to do with that. See her as your daughter? Where that come from? We see her as a representative of the government. Right? And the people who spoke out, that's what they saw her as. If it was you who were there, or if it was anybody, if Alexander was there, whoever was there, would have gotten it from the people who were there. The woman spoke out, had nothing to do with race. It had to do with the fact that you all made promises that you broke, and you have people suffering, bottom line. But leave it up to them to make it racial. But let me continue with Fali. Augustine said he was disappointed that conversations about racism are dominating TNT, adding that this was a threat to national unity and the economy. He noted racial conflict acts as a deterrent to potential tourists and investors. He waxing poetic. Describing citizens as conveniently racist, Augustine quoted Calypso legend David Rudder, as he noted how we vote is not how we party. According to Augustine, citizens face far greater economic challenges daily, and the majority have no time to focus on racism. Really, Fali? Citizens facing economic challenges? Did you tell Kamla that? She will not be pleased. Sufferers don't care about race, he said, drawing on the lyrics of the late Black Stalin. He added, only Trinidad and Tobago could destroy Trinidad and Tobago. We have to get to the place where we appreciate that we have different political views, that we have different methodologies to achieve sometimes the same goals, and that we vote differently. We like different colors, that we were raised in some instances culturally different to our neighbors, but that should not stop us from achieving unity as a country. Asked whether he intends to seek a conversation with Prime Minister Kamla Prasad Bisesa to voice his concerns, Augustine said, that might be something that I need to pray about. He needs to pray about it, okay. Augustine said his approach has always been to let Trinidadians solve their problems. In Tobago, there are two things we learn. Cockroach don't go in fall party, and sometimes when elephants fighting, it's the little blade of grass that gets trampled, and for us in Tobago, we just try not to get trampled. Asked if physical conflict could arise if the racial divide is left unchecked, Augustine said that this was a possibility, but he noted that there are many platforms where even the most uneducated opinions get aired. 91.1. He believes this has allowed people to vent and prevented conflict from becoming physical. So that's Fali there. Oh, I think this racism is too much. Really, Fali? All right. Let's see here. Not remind them now. Like the memory short. Listen to Mr. Fali, who's so concerned now about irresponsible politicians promoting racism. Well, listen to it.
PNM is the most anti-black party in the country. Don't be fooled. Let me be plain to you. Let us walk around fooling poor black people, telling them this is a black party, and when they get in office, it's only the 1% that's benefit. Only people that don't look like me and you. And that is why in the past, we called the former Prime Minister a roast breadfruit. The black outside and the inside still white. And not even no good butter breadfruit. It's not even yellow, inside white.
We love you all. We love you. And make sure the anchor holds right up until the next state election. Blue. In Trinidad, the code is yellow. When I listen to you on the platform, you're not easy, you know. You say you have a man here, feel like a roast breadfruit. I heard you. You said the man is like a roast breadfruit. And you said, but that's not the right kind, but inside not yellow and a good butter breadfruit. So the yellow in Trinidad is a butter yellow. And the blue, God loves all of us.
And they laugh at that. He now who is so concerned about politicians in Trinidad promoting racist talk. Who was that just now? Watson Duke? They say the PNM is a black party, an African party, and they only walk around fooling African people and fooling black people. And the former prime minister is a rose breadfruit, black on the outside and white on the inside. Tobago's version of Oreo. What a hypocrite Fally Augustine is. Hypocrite. But he learned well under Kamla. Learned very well. Right? So now you have a problem, but a few months ago when you were saying that, then they lead up to the THA election and talking about 1% and PNM is an African party and they only fooling black people and so on. What was that, Valley? I just asking the question. Did you pray about that? Did you ask the Lord for forgiveness for that? Maybe that's why you're reluctant to pray now, because the Lord not about listening to hypocrites. You contributed to it. Kamla came and regurgitated what you said, calling Dr. Rowley a roast breadfruit. And you stand up right behind her like and Faith B. Israel right next to you, laughing, key, and all of them, like a set of bubbleheads. Yeah, that was so funny. But always accusing the PNM of blowing the racial dog whistle. I remind the fully done supporters, it wasn't PNM when Eric Kaskula became the CEO of Heritage. It wasn't a PNM senator who went on Facebook to do a live and talking about PNM supposed to be a black man party. But look, they went and hired a white man for Heritage. You mean they couldn't find one qualified black man in the PNM to put in that post? Gaslighting persons of African descent. It wasn't a PNM person who was telling people of African descent who support the PNM. The PNM supposed to be an African party and supposed to be a black party. But look who Rowley given all the high-profile ministries, Rohan Sinanan and Stuart Chung and Coleman Burt and Kazim Hussein. And he given all the black people and all the African people, and then he given them a set of low-profile ministries trying to gaslight persons of African descent. Who did that? It wasn't a PNM senator or a PNM minister who again went on social media to do a comparison between Kamla and Rowley and telling people of African descent, imagine you're a man and you're courting two women. One is an African and one is an East Indian. And the African woman, every time when you go out, she wants to go to the most expensive restaurants and she wants you to buy a new expensive dress for her and she wants to do her nails and she wants to do her hair and she wants money for this and always want money for that and she can't even cook a proper meal for you. And when you go out to town, then you come back home and you drop her off, you can't even get a little kiss, a little hug. But the East Indian woman, she content with a little Royal Castle or a little KFC or to go and buy some doubles and she cooking for you and she rubbing your head. And she's saving money, she helping you to save money and to build you up. Which one you would prefer, the East Indian or the African? There wasn't a PNM person that that was Anil Alcoholic Roberts. Where was the condemnation when he said that? That video was circling social media. Where was the outrage when he made such a stupid, dotish, asinine comparison? Right? To frame the African women as being greedy and gold diggers. Where was the outrage? Where was the call for him to pat down with that type of stupid talk? Yeah, the UNC supporters, they're sharing that. They love that when you go under the post, under his post. Love that when you read the comments. Like that kind of talk. But coming with the PNM always trying to clean up. Again, I see when Dr. Oli wanted to spend the 100 million in Laventille, who it was that was against that. Same UNC, who told the this will love persons of African descent. Miss me with that. And only using Julian John as a prop to fool people. Could they have people like Opinion Box and this next one, this parasitic comedian they call NCW. Till he dead because he got a little work on the board as a director on the board of. They didn't put him on a board, you know. They stick him in Queen's Hall. I see do a video a couple of days ago, put on a 3-piece suit to go to probably a board meeting that will last an hour or 2 or hour and a half. Full 3-piece suit and see him pose up. Because he's taking cue from government ministers like Michelle Benjamin and Julian John. Sit down in the boardroom and opening folder and all kind of thing, put on glasses and pretending to read. All of that for $3,700 a month. The suit that he have, and he probably use it $37 in 1 month to purchase that. To be a prop. Right? Uncle Ruckus from the Boondocks. Sickling, yes? Mary Hines asking about what about Sindura, Richie, and Rohan? Asatani Makaram Indians. You see? You see? You must know a UNC supporter. You must know a UNC supporter. Right? Coming here to talk nonsense about the Makaram Indians because they support the PNM. So if you are an East Indian and you're supporting the PNM, right, you're an Makaram Indian according to Omari Hines. But when people like him supporting the UNC, if we are to assume based on his name that he is of African descent, oh, nothing wrong with that. No, he is not an Imakaram. He is not a traitor, right? He's not a sellout or some other term that I could use, but I will keep it friendly, right? Podcast friendly. No, he's none of those things. Idiots. I tell you. Jimmy is saying that Fali who called Dr. Oli a slave is that same Fali. Yes, when he was calling PNM supporters, what is by house Negroes and house slaves for supporting the PNM, Red Devils and all of that. Super C is asking, is it possible you could do some interviews on your show? I have some suggestions. I would message you. Send the suggestions to me, Super C, and I will. It's not a problem. I could organize that. In fact, several of my parliamentary colleagues have been asking me for the opportunity to come on this podcast. So I will arrange it. Red Scorpion is saying, Omari Hines, what did Maduro do to get kidnapped? I hope you can tell him when he is freed. Let me see. Wilbur saying that's why he wanted to kill the DJ. Sandra said, I hope the UNC government know we will remember. Speaking of, I saw Mary Hans is saying what Laventille do to deserve 100 million. I'm not surprised you would ask something like that, Omari. Because you know what? Use people like you who 10 years from now will come and still be talking rubbish about, oh, the PNM will do nothing for Laventille. And all these years, Laventille voting and they are loyal to the PNM and they never move. When they look from the days of the 33-3, but Laventille stayed faithful to the PNM. You don't think they deserve 100 million for that, Omari? And people like you and others like yourself complaining. PNM ain't do nothing for Laventille. They ain't do nothing for Beetham and Sealers. Look at the condition of Laventille and Sealers. And people like you wanted to remain that way. You all pretend you care about the people in Laventille and Sealers, but you don't. You all wanted to stay that way so you can say that the PNM neglect. And the minute the PNM decide we're going to fix it, or you have a problem, you come in to ask what they did to deserve 100 million. What did Separia do to deserve 100 million? Tell me any other constituency, any UNC constituency that did anything to deserve 100 million. How the hell you expect it to be developed so that you all could stop talking stupidness and nonsense about the PNM don't do nothing for black people? But the people of Laventille and Silots and Beetham will remember, right? They'll remember that you all want nothing good for them. When Dr. Rowley and the PNM built the swimming pool in Laventille and built the swimming pool in Mova, you all had an issue with that. Though they don't deserve that, but they go in and spend money in there for to build swimming pool for them people, but they don't deserve that. They know how to swim. What they need swimming pool for? When they built swimming pool in my constituency of Malaba, Mausican and Baluni, same chop it talk or they come in. What do you think? PNM. You know, many young people in Laventille learn to swim because of those swimming pools. You know many? Now the pool's down. Karim asked about it recently. What answer did we get? Well, I know anything. Right. Only a set of stupidness. But you all pretend you care about these places. But they know. They know. So that when Karim said, you all don't like them, he knew what he was talking about. It's people like you, Omari. You don't like them. For you to ask such a foolish question as to what Laventille did for 100 million. And Brian is saying if he were a patriotic person, he wouldn't talk such rubbish. Yeah, you know, I listened to some of these people, and you would swear that the residents and constituents of Laventille, East Mova, Laventille West, Port of Spain South, that they are not citizens of this country too. They're not entitled to anything. When East Port of Spain Development Corporation, which I think is still without a board, nothing happening there. This government doesn't see the need to put a board there to get them functioning so that they could develop East Port of Spain. No board for East Side Plaza and New City Mall, who are the main tenants of these malls, right? You need a board in place because the PNM, just before they demitted office, had put there was a project to renovate and upgrade East Side Plaza. Millions were supposed to be spent to bring that mall up to scratch, right? This government has come in, they scrapped that. No board in place, and there is no urgency to put a board in place for that, right? Because they couldn't care about East Port of Spain, all as PNM constituency. So, but when East Port of Spain Development Corporation under the PNM, just before they demitted office, set aside a fund of $3 million to give grants, not loans, grants of up to $20,000 to these entrepreneurs, these people who selling on Charlotte Street, Frederick Street, Henry Street, George Street, to help them to move off the pavement when they were offering them free spots or spots in Eastside Plaza and New City Mall at reduced rents. Where were you all to applaud them, applaud those efforts to create African business owners? Because all they say black people can't own business. Look at what happened last week. This young lady who owns this business called Sovete decided to have a pop-up, right? Long lines for her ice cream and cookies. So much so the response was so overwhelming that she ran out of, and then people started to threaten her because they stand up so long in this long line in the hot sun and then thing run out and so on. It's not her fault. The woman has a business place. There are other ways if you want. You don't have to wait for a pop-up to go and purchase from her. Call, visit her store. But who vexed and want to threaten her so much? And she said she's no longer doing any more pop-ups. Running a very successful business. Where is the support for that? No support. You wouldn't talk about that. Clint Douglas, good afternoon. Dominic, blessed day to you. This is the gentleman you gave a drop to City Gate. Greetings. Let me see here. Wilbos is asking who got the contract for those prefabricated buildings. We're asking the same question, Wilbos. And we would love to get the answer to that. I doubt we will, because as Alexander said, you will get that in a subsequent report. What subsequent means, I have no idea. I don't even meant, I guess he meant subsequent, but hey. Possible. Celestine Allen is saying UNC operatives will pay a heavy price for meeting out those evil deeds. Zuti is saying, every time I pass Lady Young and glance over the east, I cringe to see the murky color and condition of the public pool. It would have been so valuable for the youth swimmers' development. Exactly. And that was the intention of the PNM. But it is not a priority for this government because it is a PNM constituency. And it don't make sense doing anything to uplift the youth in the PNM constituencies. Because remember, that's where all the crime is, eh? That's where all the murderers live, and that's where all the bandits live, and that's where all the rapists live, and all the home invaders, all of them live. So if we develop these areas, then what are we going to use? Then we're going to cut back on the amount of criminals, right? And then how are we going to jam the PNM? They're so care about crime. But the solution to crime is 30 police posts costing probably millions of dollars, rather than you invest money into the very same communities where you claim the criminals live. The communities that harbor the criminals. Right? But I just want to tell Prasad Bisesa, Malabar Mosika, we don't need no police post. We could. We have a police station right in the heart of Malabar there. Okay? And for the most part, we don't really have that big a problem with criminal activity. Now and again, we hear about vehicles being broken into or vehicles being stolen, but the issue of serious crime like murder and all them kind of thing, we got over here. That's why so many businesses are gravitating to Malabar Mosika and wanting to set up. Soon enough, I think we will be getting we should be getting a major supermarket chain will be opening another branch in our constituency, and I think we're supposed to be getting some other franchises coming as well. So we're looking good. Okay, we good. Let's see. Hot Mango is saying the police will lock up people to put them where. Firewoman is saying, but when will GenePair complex renovation going to continue and finish? They're not. I doubt they're going to continue that. They're not interested. The UNC and Kamla always keep saying PNM constituencies has the most of the worst, most amount of crime, most amount of poverty, most amount of unemployment, the worst infrastructure, the worst roads, the worst of everything. And what are they doing to fix it? Absolutely nothing. And figure that by spiting us and by depriving the corporations of critical funding, that somehow they're punishing us. But I remind them, over 7,000 people voted for you all in Malabar Mosika. So when you're suffering the constituency, you're suffering them too. You're suffering them too, and they come into me every week for help. One lady came on Tuesday to see me. She said, she said, I know into the politics thing. I was a former CPF worker, right? I lost my work. I have not been able to find work since then. And I really didn't want to have to come here to ask her for anything. But I just seeking a little bit of assistance because I have my children to support. School going on open just now. If you could assist with maybe, school supplies like a school bag. They need help with sneakers. They need help with stationery supplies and so on. She and the husband broke up, right? So I imagine she's 45 years old. She has 6 children and 2 grandchildren. She said she wasn't expecting that, right? She said the other day the husband came, he gave her $250, and then when he left, she said he got around to the side of the house and listening, and the daughter saying, "But how daddy could give mommy $250? What mommy supposed to do with that?" Right? And then afterwards, now sometimes she bounced him back a couple of days later and he telling her, "Oh, I heard children them saying thing and whoever." Now he was working CPAP too. He lost his job, but he's been able to every now and again he get a little end here, a little end there, and he could bring what he could. But you see, full belly man tell hungry belly man, hold straight. Hold straight. Leon Joseph says nothing happened in Toko. Anon is saying that's why PNM placed a linear accelerator at St. James for their cancer treatment, 84 million. Yeah, and we don't talk about it, unfortunately. People, we have a local government election coming up, right? The latest that could be called is in, I think, November of 2027, and I imagine the UNC would be inclined to draw it out for as late as they could in the hope that money will start to flow from whatever energy sector projects and that they could try and mama guy and fool people. Take whatever they give, right? Take whatever they give you. But on election day, next year, local election, you know what to do. Don't stay home. Don't stay home. Please. It's because some of you all stay home is why we are where we are today. Right? So go out and do what you need to do. You say local government not important. This one is because it's going to send a clear message to the government that the people are fed up. Right? And don't let them come in no cheap tricks to try and fool you with anything. And you forget, yeah, well, you know, I forgive them for the 2 years that I suffered. Or the 2.5 years that you suffered. Because some of you all, your children's education future is now in jeopardy because you couldn't send them to school. They miss a whole term, 2 terms because you couldn't afford to send them, and now what? They drop out of school. You send them to learn a trade, okay, that could work. But who knows? If you were able to keep them and send them to school as you were doing when the PNM was in power, things might have been different. MR is saying, I wonder if that same woman voted. I hope they all see what elections can do. Please vote. Yes, there's a plan afoot to gerrymander boundaries. They will do anything. They don't want a repeat of 2013. No. Don't forget what happened in 2013. 2010, they came in, they won the election, they got 29 seats. We got 12. Then in July of 2010, they called the local election because they were riding a wave. They came and they got, I think, 11 corporations. We had about, what, 3 or 4 corporations? Yeah? 2013, we routed them. Just 3 years later. And they couldn't recover from that. With all the money they tried to spend and all they tried to bribe voters, they couldn't do it. And they're seeing the writing on the wall again. So don't be fooled by them. Let me just take Brian here, and then I have to leave, folks. Brian.
Good afternoon to you, Dominic.
Greetings.
Dominic said he turned to learn a trade way.
Good point. Good point. Very good point.
Learn a trade way.
Yeah. My bad.
To set up all of these places for people to learn to hoist. Even the last one, my lad shut down now. CCC.
Well,
understand all of these places to learn a trade.
Well, Alexander offering them to learn barbering and hairdressing.
Barbering and hairdressing.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that. What is the I don't want to downgrade. What is the income for that?
Yeah.
What is the income? And this is the issue. You're not helping the youth anyway, but they're putting up police posts.
Mm-hmm.
Putting up a little 2x4 little place that if you hold somebody, where you putting them? You're the guide them to the main police station. You put up a police post by Grand Bazaar. Who live in Grand Bazaar? You put up a police post on Eddie Hart ground when people there have been begging for a way for it now, a little place for when they actually come to train, right? They could use a little toilet facility or so, and they can sit down in the pavilion and watch the children train. Instead of opening the car up for mommy, I want to pee. Okay, I go open the car up for you. Stop down there now. They're putting police posts. And when you ask, how much it costs? Have you spoken to the OPR? Well, when PNM tell me how much, if they went to the OPR and I show me the invoice for Balize House, then we could show them the invoice for these police posts. Imagine that.
Yeah.
And Balize House belonged before the OPR was assented to. But these are some of the issues and next question. So I've got it in time. And all sorts of people get contracted. 13 months now, you have this idea. It's not in the mid-year appropriations. It's not even there. But you find money for that. But for the children and all of these youth who need something to do.
My lad.
As well as the parents. Nothing.
My lad too expensive.
Yes, and now we have an idea now. I no longer need MPOX. You know why? We could get them prisoners and them to come out. And we could pay them 90 cents a week to do all that work. So no longer that they could need MPOX.
Correct.
So all the people who was to do CPEP, but we had all the corruption and URP and forestry. But we find an answer for all you. Right? You could bring out the prisoners and them going to do the work that all they was doing. And we had to pay them 90 cents I thought the highest end
Yeah.
is from 50 to 70 to 90 cents a week. And the only time you're getting that money is at the end of the incarceration. So you come to about, let me say, $36. That was going to get after maybe 10 years of work, hard labor. So all who had inclination or just going to get money or get work coming up with CPEP and whatever and puffs and so on, that's dead. And then you have people now in Hilton now waiting until September 18th to determine what kind of Christmas they're going to have.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that. Look at where we reach. That people coming to work and you ain't sure what kind of Christmas you're going to have. And people and our minister telling us, well, the stocks are at well advanced, but don't worry, it's about Hilton building in South. What does that mean? What does that mean? But you can't come to a conclusion. But you see what happened, they went looking for the money, for these allocated monies for these things.
Yeah.
And when Robinson Reggie spoke, money was already allocated for certain housing programs. It's not the housing they went to look at, it's where the money was. And they didn't find it. So guys, the concern is about the money they were looking for, the millions of dollars. They ain't seen none, so they're vexed. So nothing will move. Nothing is being done. And that is what Camille Robinson was talking about the other day, last week. Nothing, absolutely nothing is. All that's going on in the country is these 30 buildings, and you don't know the cost. You don't know who is the contractors. You know nothing, but it's going up quick fast, because that will solve crime in the country. Really? How don't solve crime? You have hold somebody where you're paying them. Look right now in Maloney and these places, school bags are being given out, I understand, and irrelevant things to go with it. Being given out as we speak to children who parents can't afford school going to open just over here. Absolutely nothing about whether there was school repaired. Nothing at all. Absolutely nothing. The Minister of Education hasn't said a word. Not a word. Absolutely nothing. But the money's being spent to put up to hold people. To put them where? So that is their plan. Hold people. Right, keep SOE going, so we gotta carry them to court. And that's the end of that. So you have all these, I remember Gary Griffith saying we have so many police stations, more than what they have in New York, for the 8 million people. So all the police stations we have now, you're putting up 30 police posts, mobile police posts. And if you don't like it here, you move it and you put it somewhere else. And that's a move when it's dead of the night, and you'll only get up one morning and realize, hey, like a police post out by me here, boy. And that is the end of that. Is that another way to do this also? Is that another way? Where are they getting the police from? Where are they getting all these police from? The 2,000 plus they want to hire, that went for interview the other day, they want to hire?
Correct.
So you're taking these new youths to do what? To put them where? And who's going to be in charge of these mobile police posts? A sergeant, a corporal, a who? And what the army men going to be doing? With no authority. Or you're going to come to the parliament to look for the authority to give them police authority. All of these things you have to ask. No money to pay the MPOC workers to finish paying them up. You hire a company to see about that for 1,600 workers. So who you contracted to see about paying these workers, and they still haven't finished their pay yet?
Yep.
Imagine that. I'll be able to listen to these people. That our former prime minister put out a hit on a present minister, and the man who get the contract, he went to the police and admitted that he get the contract. And this former minister, PNM minister, they can't hold it yet. They can't hold it yet.
Yeah.
Who fooling who? How long that happen? And all they get you want more security. Okay, they get more security. And this former PNM minister can't get hold yet. So we can find out exactly who he is. and you have a Minister of Homeland Security came to give us an answer and tell us nothing about all of these police posts, and we stand and say, no, yeah, just listen to these people. Really? Are being put in certain places. Why do you put one in Ceylon? You know, we're talking about Ceylon so bad, Ceylon so this, and Ceylon so that. Why are they doing that? Why is it mostly UNC areas? Why is that? They put one by the Grand Bazaar. Who will live in Grand Bazaar? And these are some of the questions we have to ask. Nothing about cost. We take Randall Mitchell and Mr. Eversley and Stuart Young and they to actually send letters to the OPR, SCAN, to ask questions about these things. When we will get the answers, we don't know. We have an officer investigating who exposed the telephone call. How long now? Going on nearly 2 months. He can't give us the answer to that yet. Will we get an answer for that? No, we won't. A big assistant commissioner of police leading an investigation as to how that was exposed, by whom. We get any answer for that? And here you have a commissioner of police saying, I agree with the police, with these mobile police posts. He disagreed with anything yet? No. He ain't disagreed with nothing yet. Everything good as far as he's concerned. But what you going to do? When you jump over all of these potential former assistant superintendents and deputy superintendents and deputy commissioners and assistant commissioners of police, and you become commissioner of police over all of them, well, what are you going to do? Like the life. But Trinidad and Tobago, look on and remember. Look on and remember. Ask questions. Because the answers, you're not going to get it from these people. They're going to make it up as they go along, and they will give it to you and feed it to you one day, and that's the end of you. Take it or leave it. They have no money to pay salaries. They have no money to pay the Port of Spain workers, the lowest paid Port of Spain corporation workers. They increase in the pay. But they have money to put up mobile police posts and pay the contractors who are doing it. What a shame. Have a good day.
You too, sir. And let me just say belated birthday greetings to His Excellency, the President of Pleasantville, His Excellency Nigel O'Connor, who celebrated a birthday last Friday. And as I leave, I see we're no sooner, one day after the Prime Minister was boasting that we're celebrating a mini milestone, 10 days with no murders. I'm now reading here on Ian Allen's page that there was a double murder in Calvary, in Arima, this morning. Yeah? So it seems like she's a blight. It's better she had hush her mouth. So as soon as she said, you know what they will say? Yeah, well, and they were already saying it already because I read it under the comments when the media posted that story about her saying she and Alexander sit down in a vehicle and she's saying 10 days with no murders. And of course, the UNC faithful saying, yeah, don't let PNM supporters say that. You know, PNM supporters going and do something about that to fix. They're going and fix that tonight. And here we read this morning, double murder, Calvary and Arima. Come on, just hush. Just hush. Shh. Okay? Hush. Ah, boy. Shame. But don't put it past her. Probably you might see a post come out just now. If not now, probably later on this afternoon on her page, talking about how no sooner had she made mention of that there was a murder and that the PNM probably has something to do with that. Okay? But because that's how they think. Folks, yeah, that's what she said, 10 days without a murder. But we can't trust these statistics because up to now, nobody knows what the exact murder figure is, and you can't depend on the government or the police to tell you. So we had to rely on people like Ian Allen and DJ Sheriff and others. But yeah. Never a dull moment in Sweet Tea. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, folks. As I said, I gotta leave. MP duties call, so gotta do what I gotta do, but I was able to squeeze in a little time with you guys. So have a productive week, and we will chat again next week. P.F. Cutters is saying this is 7 minutes from my neighborhood. Yeah, double murder, Calvary. You don't really hear murders taking place so in Arima. But again, they will say PNM did that because the Prime Minister say, so they decide to go and break it by killing 2 people. UNC logic, better known as donkey logic. We will chat again next week, Sunday, God's willing. Folks, but next week, Sunday, is the Arima 5K, all right, under the auspices of the Arima Borough Corporation. I think the Member of Parliament for Arima, Leader of the Opposition, Penelope Beckles Robinson. So it's sold out. I can't even tell you all go and register because I understand it sold out, right? And that takes place at 6:30 in Arima next week, Sunday. So have a good one, and we will chat again soon.